It was one of those mornings where everything felt just a little off. I'd overslept, my coffee had gone cold, and I promised my son, Ethan, I'd drive him to the bus stop instead of letting him walk the half-mile through a new neighborhood. We'd only been in Pinewood Heights for 3 weeks, and I was still getting used to the winding streets and manicured lawns of this gated community. As I pulled my unmarked sedan around the corner, my stomach dropped. There was Ethan, my 12-year-old, his shoulders slumped, his backpack clutched tight against his chest like a shield. A woman in a sharp blazer and skirt stood over him, her perfectly manicured finger stabbing the air just inches from his face. Even from 50 feet away, I could hear her voice slicing through the crisp morning air. "I've never seen you here before, kid," she snapped, her tone dripping with accusation. "This is a private neighborhood bus stop. Show me proof you live here, or I'm calling security. Now." Ethan's eyes were wide, his face pale with that mix of fear and confusion only a kid can wear. A few other parents and their kids stood nearby, shifting uncomfortably, their eyes darting away. No one said a word. I parked quickly, making sure the government plates on my car weren't too OBVYS. See, I'm the police chief in this small town of Crest VYEW, but I've been keeping that under wraps. I stepped out just as the woman's voice hit a new pitch. "Do you even know what trespassing means?" she barked. "I'm Cynthia Brooks, president of the Homeowners Association, and I have every right to question suspicious people in my community." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "I live here," he said. "My dad and I moved to Cedar Lane." Cynthia scoffed, her arms crossing tightly. "Cedar Lane? Really? Which house? Who lived there before? Why haven't I seen your parents at any of our meetings?" That was my cue. I walked over, keeping my voice steady, the way I'd learned to in 20 years on the force. "Excuse me," I said. "Is there a problem?" Cynthia spun toward me, her face a mask of smug superiority. She was in her late 40s with a sleek brunette bob and a gold HOA pin that gleamed like a badge of honor. "I'm handling a situation," she said, barely glancing at me. "This boy claims he lives here, but I know everyone saw in Pinewood Heights. We've had issues with outsiders sneaking into our amenities." Ethan looked at me, relief flooding his face. "Dad," he said softly. Cynthia's eyebrows shot up, and she sized me up, not backing down an inch. "Oh, you're his father," she said, her tone shifting but still sharp. "Well, as HOA president, it's my job to keep this neighborhood secure. I'll need your community ID card. We have strict rules about who uses this bus stop." The other parents were watching now, some wincing, others looking resigned like they'd seen this show before. One mom caught my eye and mouthed a silent apology. I could tell Cynthia wasn't new to this. "Ma'am," I said, calm as ever, "my son and I moved into 312 Cedar Lane 3 weeks ago. The old Thompson place. We're registered residents, and Ethan has every right to be here." Cynthia's red nails tapped impatiently against her designer purse. "Everyone knows new residents must check in with the HOA office and get proper ID before using community facilities," she said, her smile cold. "The bus stop counts. I don't make the rules, I enforce them." I put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Go wait in the car, buddy," I said. "The bus will be here soon. I'll handle this." Once Ethan was out of earshot, I turned back to Cynthia. This wasn't our first tangle with the HOA. In just 3 weeks, we'd gotten notices about our mailbox being an inch too short, our shutters being the wrong shade of gray, and get this, our recycling bin being VY-sible for too long after pickup. "Ms. Brooks, is it?" I asked, though I knew exactly who she was. Her welcome packet, complete with a 4-page list of VY-olations we needed to fix, had been hand-delivered to our doorstep. "That's right," she said, her chest puffing out. "Cynthia Brooks, HOA president, 9 years running." "Well, Ms. Brooks," I said, "there's been a misunderstanding. Questioning a minor without a parent present crosses lines legal and ethical. My son was clearly upset by your approach." Cynthia huffed, unfazed. "I have full authority from the HOA board to question anyone on community property. It's for safety. We've had vandalism, and the board voted for stricter security. If your son had ID, we wouldn't be VYing this conversation." Her self-righteous tone pushed me over the edge. I reached into my jacket, pulled out my badge, and held it low so the kids wouldn't see, but close enough for Cynthia to get the picture. "Chief Daniel Harper, Crest VYEW Police Department," I said evenly. "I believe you just harassed my 12-year-old while he was waiting for the school bus. That's not just against HOA rules, it could be intimidation of a minor under state law." The change in Cynthia was like flipping a switch. Her face, flushed with power moments ago, went ghost white. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Chief, I had no idea," she stammered. "Chief, I had no idea," she stammered, her voice jumping an octave. "This is a misunderstanding. I was just doing my duty to keep Pinewood safe. If I'd known who you were," I cut her off. "That's the problem, Ms. Brooks. You shouldn't need to know I'm the police chief to treat a kid with basic respect. Any saw kid deserves better than being grilled and accused of trespassing on their way to school." The school bus rumbled up the street, and I waved Ethan back. Cynthia was still fumbling for words, her confidence crumbling under the stares of the other parents, who weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. "I'll be filing a report on this," I said, my voice low but firm. "Not as a resident, but as a cop concerned about harassment of kids in this community. I'd also like to see the HOA bylaw that lets you interrogate children without parents. I bet your board's lawyer would love to take a look at that." A mom stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "She did the same to my daughter last month," she said. "Accused her of sneaking in a friend from outside and threatened to fine." Another dad nodded. "She got my contractor banned because their van was unsightly. Cost me $2,000 to switch companies." Cynthia's face went from white to crimson, but this time it wasn't authority, it was humiliation. "This is absurd," she snapped, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "I've spent a decade keeping this neighborhood safe, maintaining our property values. You have no idea what would happen without my standards." The bus doors opened, and I gave Ethan a quick hug. "Have a good day, kid," I said. "Don't worry about this." After the kids boarded, I turned back to Cynthia. "Ms. Brooks, I expect you at the station this afternoon for a formal statement about your habit of questioning kids. 3 o'clock works, and I'll be at the next HOA meeting to discuss security protocols that don't involve scaring children." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You can't seriously think this needs police involvement," she said. "I was doing my job. Harassment isn't a job," I shot back. "And targeting kids crosses a line. Your actions today could lead to charges of intimidation, harassment, even impersonating a security official. That's a due life, $5,000 fine, and possible jail time in this state." Cynthia went silent, her eyes wide with panic. The other parents were staring, some with smirks that didn't bother hiding. It was clear Cynthia's reign had hurt more families than just mine. A week later, an email went out to every resident. Cynthia Brooks had regretfully resigned as HOA president and committee chair after numerous complaints. She'd been slapped with a due $2,000 fine for harassment and ordered to complete 40 hours of community service VYC. The HOA issued an apology, especially to families with kids, and promised to overhaul their guidelines. I saw Cynthia a few days later, scurrying from her Lexus to her house, avoiding everyone's eyes. I didn't feel triumph, just relief that Ethan and the other kids could wait for the bus without fear. But here's where it gets messy. Was I too hard on Cynthia, throwing my badge around to shut her down? Should I have handled it as a neighbor, not a cop? And what about the HOA? Do their rules protect the community or just fuel power trips like hers? Drop your thoughts below. Should Cynthia have faced harsher consequences, or was she just a stickler for rules gone too far? Hit that like button if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, and subscribe for more stories that'll make you question who's really running a neighborhood.